Yo, yo, yo. How y'all be? Hairless mix of the blue sea. It's me. We back. It's been a couple of weeks, but we back to that peak. Let's go, man. Man. Look, I've been having such a good time with anime and manga lately, especially I had like 2 days ish this week where I was just catching up on content of things my schedule got a little weird there, but it sucks without One Piece, man. It sucks without One Piece. Don't get me wrong. Shout out to my boy, Aizen Sosuke. Right, what's going on in Bleach right now, and Hunter x Hunter, and Don and a few other series that I'll talk about eventually. But there's nothing like that hot and fresh Fire Friday chapter, right? There's nothing like it for me. And now we here with 1068. That Genius's dream, and you already know what time it is by having dream in the title where we was going with this. And I know when I get online later, I can hear the cries in the distance at a new Nakama. I still think he dies, but who knows, right? Let's jump into it, man. We got the cover story with my man Shiro Gangster Gastino versus top 5 dead or alive leader of the Simp Smoke Nation, the Simp Smoke Master himself, Judgy, who finally is confirmed to have hockey, although he didn't do anything with it back in Whole Cake. I guess at least it's useful for somebody like Caesar. Now, I'm not aware of where, like, the flashback that both of them are having in their head back to Mads. I don't know if that's Egghead Island in their head or Punk Hazard. I don't even know if it matters. The shadows matter, though. Now, we get fooled by silhouettes and shadows all the time. Their designs sometimes don't even stay the same. But man, does that look like a dog and a cat. And I know for a fact that it's not Neko and Inuyarashi. I know it's not. There's no way. The only other character I could think of, but they look too tall, that would make sense if we knew who they are already to be in Mads, and I brought this up before, is Lindbergh. But that's a whole nother story, right? Hopefully it ties into the main story just like it has been with the Aokiji and, Van Harger situation with Puddin'. But we'll see, right? We got Ofo, 04, talking to Cypher Paul Aegis Zito. Every time I think about their name now, I just think about the Reverie arc, man, in the anime with Charlos and Shirahoshi when he was like, Cypher Paula, Aegis Zito, where Rob Lucci slammed Leo into the ground. It's one of my favorite moments because I couldn't stand the Tontada, but they was so fresh and clean, man. That was a hard promo. And all white, they was just too clean. It was Tussie Kaku and Robert D. Gucci McLucci. But now they're hearing the story and they're ready to cause havoc, right? That's just what they're on. So he tells Cypher Pole, hey, good job, thumbs up, soldier, on some Captain America pose type stuff. Mission completed, Cammy, mission completed, sir. And you guys can leave now. You brought the Seraphim back, good looking out, S-Bear. And I'm like, S-Bear? What are we doing here with this great value name, man? Oda act like this is, like, it's not his series. You know what I mean? This is, saying S-Bear is like in other media, when you want to use the name of something that exists, but you don't want to pay the company. You don't want to pay Elmo to say Elmo. You don't want to pay Dr. McStuffins or Paw Patrol. You don't want to pay those people. So you're like, I'll call him S-Bear. Hey, Mom, can I get a new S-Bear for Christmas? That's what it sounds like. All I can hear is Jingle All the Way vibes. But anyway, it is what it is with the name, right? That's not the important part, but you guys know how I get. And the fact that Dr. Vega pumps, the fact that Dr. Vegapunk tells them, I'm too busy right now. You don't need to come on the island. S-Bear can make its way back by itself. I'm assuming, it was implying through its own ability, which now we know for a fact it has that ability, Kuma's original ability. And Kaku was like, that's kind of rude. He's acting like, hey, it's cold out here. Can we pop in for, a spot of tea? Can we get a cup of tea or something, warm it up a bit? Right? And Lucci is just sitting there thinking like, this is mad sus. We're Cypher Pole. Nobody tells us, to go away like we're some type of children, man. We show up, man. We expect whatever we want to happen. You know what I mean? So he's like, okay, I see what this is. And then Dr. Vegapunk tells them, well, you can always go down the street. G14 got everything you need, which ties back into the storyline of Sword, right? And the rest of them sitting at around G14 like doll. And, I remember Helmeppo did one of Seraphim to go after Blackbeard, right? To save Kobe. And, probably accidentally save Pudding, which that's a whole nother situation, right? But it's like recapping without recapping. Having Dr. Vegapunk talk about G14 is just a reminder. Like, hey, look, Sword, we're fighting Cypherpole right now, but don't forget, Sword, they're going to be back in the story, right? All right. And after this, Lucci brings up some interesting information that I'm not sure if he's lying or not, about if these events, not just if these, well, one thing is for certain, right? Dr. Vegapunk confirmed for a fact that Cypherpole 5, 7, and 8 did come to that island on ships. So now we know for a fact there's 3 more Cypherpole groups out there somewhere, confirmed, doing something, right? And I say that they're doing something, it'll make sense in like a few seconds, right? Because this doesn't seem right. Do you honestly think, right, if these ships disappeared, right, 2 months ago, think about that. Right, if we're not counting breaks, that's 8 chapters in One Piece that these Cypherpole agents was just gone. Like during Wano, like this was all going on. So there's no way that they're going to wait with how much of an emphasis the world government has put on having a lack of resources, especially when it comes to manpower. That ships of Cypherpole are going to disappear with Cypherpole employees / agents, right? And nobody's going to say nothing for 2 months. Come on, man. There's no way that's going down. The first time a Cypherpole ship disappeared and Dr. Vegapunk didn't answer any type of questions, you best believe the Age of Zero would have been there months ago. Right? Like, there's just no way. Even with the situation with, no, my man, what? One clap Kaido cuz on Wano. Right, with the boy Blue Dripper, a.k.a. Goranika, that wouldn't have mattered as much as dealing with something like this, because it would make it look like I almost call him Dr. Egghead. Dr. Vegapunk was specifically targeting Cypherpole, which there's no way they would have just let that ride. So that's why I say that part is that's just what it is. But the fact that these individuals are out there somewhere, because Dr. Vegapunk, if he's also telling the truth, that they just disappeared. They just, they didn't disappear, but they left here safely. So from Egghead Island to wherever, they just disappeared. Now, again, if we're to assume that Rob Lucci is telling the truth, at least as far as he knows, then that means these Cypherpole agents came across somebody else. Who? We have no idea. Right? If this is going to be tied back into the story, I think so. Here's the reason why. Obviously, I'm going to get on with the chapter, but you guys know I like to break down what I'm talking about. Ain't no way in the Serete, right? Shout out to Yamamoto. That Cypherpole, I don't care what kind of upgrades they got. I don't care how much, they've been working out at the gym. None of them were fighting. No. They weren't fighting One Clap Kaido and Big Mom. I'm not saying the Straw Hats are invincible, right? To go with the Coat, the Phenom for Fuchsia, the Rubber Band Man, there's still characters in the series, whether we know about it or not, that can still beat Luffy 1v1, right? Blackbeard, Akagami, no part-timer, right? It's got to be characters like that. Unless you bring some legend that we're not aware of, you're getting stomped by the Straw Hats, man. It's not happening, man. Especially because you already know. It's bad enough it's not just Luffy. It's hailing in From the south side of Shimosuke Village is the Sampaya de Santa Ryura Nora Zoro. Boy, I ain't got to say that name in some weeks, and he ain't even in the chapter. On top of that, as much as I roast him for being a simp smoke, when it comes to throwing hands, man, no. Black leg, boy. Sanji Black Leg of Smoker. Those three, man, again, if you're not a Kainu, you're not Blackbeard, you're not Akagami, do not pull up on them three. You're getting packed out, man. It's just not a thing no more in the story. They're at that level. So again, I respect whatever growth that Cypher Pope may have acquired, but it would be really hard for me to believe that they were facing characters on the same level as what the last couple of arcs have been. You went from Katakuri and somewhat mostly Katakuri, right? We went from Katakuri, right, to straight Kaido level. And then you're going to tell me, again, I'm the one that's been bringing up, he wouldn't bring him back into the story just to have them just not be a factor. So one of the things I was thinking about, I'm like, wait a minute, if we got three groups of Cypher Pole out there and Rob Lucci is telling the truth, these are people that could be on standby, because Rob Lucci was already had no issue with abandoning the ship that they came in on. You know what I mean? So on one note, it just sounds like Rob Lucci being Lucci and coming up with a fake excuse on why he needs to come on the island anyway. But at the same time, it's like, don't forget that these characters probably actually really do exist, whether Rob Lucci's lying or not, and they might tie in later because of the whole G14 thing. I know I took the long route on that, but y'all know how it can be sometimes, and I ain't talked about I ain't talked about Peak Fiction in a couple of weeks, so it is what it is. And but we can move on from that. That was immediately was stuck in my mind because, again, if he was telling the truth, the first thing I thought was like, oh, Lilith was out here Kaizoku and Cypher Pole. In that moment kind of made me kind of hype. But then I'm like, wait a minute. The world government's not going for stuff just disappearing. They're the ones that make things disappear. So just don't forget that. Now, after Dr. Vegapunk insists that they go deal with the G14 thing and let them accommodate their situation, right? Lucci tells the scrubs, like, yo, we about to ban the ship and we just going to Egghead anyway. We'll just use Asper's ability. Okay, that makes sense. And then we cut to Kamabaka Queendom. And just a little, basically just an update. Kuma's still rampaging and he's like in a desperation, determination mode, probably a combination of the two. He used his ability on himself. Who knows what he's going to pop up? Hopefully it's, actually it could be anywhere. I won't say anywhere, but, Sabo's still out there. We had the situation when he first started rampaging. It was during a dialogue that involved Bonnie. So it could have something to do with that, and this Esper situation might tie into that because these Seraphim do retain, genetic, we'll say dispositions, right, of their previous users. So just like the joke with Hancock, Seraphim, and Luffy, the same situation could occur with Bonnie, right? We know that's a thing, that's a possibility, and it's kind of been alluded to. But it was just a quick note, and then we jump to something else, right? We go straight to Junkyard Dog. So Dr. Vegapunk, this is where things get interesting, and with the title of the chapter having dream in it to begin with, we have Dr. Vegapunk talking about what his dream is, and it's something I alluded to as a part of his characterization, although I won't overlook the fact that he's probably committed some serious atrocities in the name of the progression of humanity and science. At the same time, his intent is only to progress humanity farther, in any way, shape, and possible that he can contribute to do so. So now, similar to what I was talking about with the aircon, this makes total sense, right? He wanted the aircon in the vending machine specifically. That's what Wrath had a problem with, not having funding for mass production because of how many people that could feed, right? We know the One Piece world, if you're not if you're not a royal, you're a bum, right? You're a royal, you're a top pirate, or you're just a regular person. But most of the regular people in this series usually live in poverty. That's just how the series has been set up. So from that aspect, just giving them the ability to take whatever they could use for food and make actual food and still retain nutrients, like that's a game breaking thing for their world. And it was part of the reason I talked about why the ghosts, they probably would wipe him out, right? We see governments and corporations will say stall people out when it comes to the progression of technology, regardless of what sector it's in, right? But it's a thing. It's still a thing now, you know. And from Luffy's point of view, he's just like, okay, so you want to give away free stuff, not understanding, obviously, because he's Luffy. And then Jinbei goes into basically what I was just explaining, the limited resources or, well, finite resources, it's the same thing, right? Leads to nations waging war, right? That's a very old statement, right? This planet only has so much land and God ain't making no more of it. It's the same thing with natural resources. So Vegapunk is basically trying to cut that. He's trying to break that cycle by creating free energy for everyone because energy is everywhere. He just needs to find a way to convert it. And I've also talked about at least between Wano and now, right? I kind of compared Wano to the movie Fern Gully, right, with the situation with how industrialization has torn their country apart, and not because that's something they wanted to do, and it's also in the Lorax, which I referenced a couple weeks ago, with Dr. Vegapunk's head, like that, he gave him that Dr. Seuss look. So it is a concept he's been slipping into the story, not as like a main focus, but it is a problem in their world too, similar to ours. So I do like that part about his character, because if he's able to produce free energy for everyone, the amount of wars that would exist, they wouldn't completely go away, but they certainly would dwindle down, right? If countries could produce for themselves, even at the smallest level, right? That's literally how humanity progressed in the first place, right? If we didn't have initial farmer people that learned how to farm, right? We wouldn't be here at this point. Science never would have got us this far without small steps like that. So he's trying to break a barrier in the system itself, because it has an economic effect. And similar to some of the stories about governments, right, where people used to grow their own food, but they had to pay the government to do it. And then the government basically let you make enough so you could keep working, right? They took most of the profit. You kept enough food to feed your family. And if you got caught hiding any, they would just start, what would happen. Just read human history. This has unfortunately, it's been consistent throughout time, because that's a part of power and control, right? There's always going to be greedy people. However, something like this, Instant Messenger Sama is not going to ride with this, right? Because if people are happier, it's just a lot of things that are going to go wrong for them, because then they'll lose faith in the world government the more that they can do for themselves, right? And they already have rebellions as it is. Think about what happened with Sabo, and we still don't know why Lucia got wiped off the map. Either somebody had information, or they were close to doing something that the Instant Messenger Sama was like, see, you went too far. You can't be doing all that. You can be kind of happy, but if you're actually happy, I can't allow that. I sit on the empty throne. So I understand, again, what his intent is, but, I'm sure there was a lot of blood spilled in the process, even on his end. And then you have Luffy telling him, like, look, I ain't no hero, bro. I've been saying it for 25 years, even though he's not 25 yet, right? He's not a hero. But he respects Dr. Vegapunk, like, okay, you're just trying to help people out, because even though Luffy doesn't want the title of a hero, that's pretty much all he's ever been. The only people he really even steals from are bad guys, in a sense. Now, what Dr. Vegapunk talks about is interesting, because in my, you guys know I brought it up time after time. I had the assumption that he came to the conclusion that there was either an Instant Messenger Sama or something else going on in the government that he's not aware of. And the more he researches stuff, that's what's going to happen, right? And he brings up the Iron Giant that we've seen, the same one that ran up on Mary Jo's pub. And he starts talking about in his research, he realized, like, oh, you know what I could do? Whatever powered the Iron Giant, that has to be some type of energy resource. Let me check that out. And of course, doing that in the process, he ended up finding out too much, and now he's got to go. And that's basically what he's trying to tell Luffy, because now he's doing the One Piece, your standard, this is my dream. He's even got the pose, which the pose is hilarious to me just because the close up on his face, and he has like the chopper eyes, where I'm like, oh, look at this guy, man. Apple cramps, huh? I guess this is what we're doing now. You guys know, like I said earlier, how this is going to be taken. I don't think he's still going to be a permanent fixture in the story. Not that he can't be, it's just, man, this. But then when you think about the space thing in the background, and like, this could go all kinds of ways, He still may die, though. Don't forget. He could just die any chapter at this point, or in the end game. Still One Piece, but I don't know, especially because he brings up his friend's will, right? Which I'm assuming is Clover, based on the fact that he brought up O'Hara right after it, right? He wants to further Clover's will. And Clover did do, from what are, a lot of studying on the ancient kingdom and things that you shouldn't be knowing about. Hence why Cobra is not with us no more. And we still haven't seen Vivi. I'm going to keep bringing that up until we see her in a chapter. She's the Theta in the series right now from Hunter x Hunter. And so now that he knows this fuel exists, along with the idea of perpetual energy, to continue further to achieve that goal, he can't do that if he stays at Egghead, because they're coming to get him, right? He knows why Cypher Pole is there, and it's not to turn the video like he's Blockbuster or something, and this is like 1998. They're here for trouble. So he's next. And the funny part is, because he talks about the will, it's like he's got will and dream. And if you've been in the community long enough, you already know where this is going, son. There are already people crying for him to be in the crew as soon as we've seen his face. Again, whether he does or not, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know how much it matters based on how long the story is going to be, or at least how long the story appears that it's going to be. I don't know how much it matters. The only thing to me that matters is, does he accomplish what he is setting out to do? So, like I said, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know. But while they're talking about this, there's explosions going on in the background. And then the next thing you know, he's talking about how he knows too much, and while he's talking about this, right? That's where Cypher Pole did something to get on the island using, S-Bear's ability, and they let their ship get destroyed. And basically, what did he say after he tells Luffy about the Cypher Pole situation or whatever? And Jinbei also, there's a couple of statements in this chapter that they almost don't sound like they're from One Piece, and that's something I've noticed with some certain words and statements. They've been a little bit different as we've progressed this past 7 or 8 chapters. Even some parts of Wano, the language. Even if you read, obviously writers change, but I like the diving deeper into the abyss statement by Dr. Vegapunk. I'm like, oh, we going Hiei Sasuke route with that one. Obviously he meant it in a different way, but that's not a normal statement for this series. And then Jinbei referred to Cypher Pole as the harbingers of catastrophe. And I know he wanted to put the word death. But he's just not going to do it. But catastrophe is just as bad, because that can mean all types of stuff, right? And after that, we get another cutaway, and then we cut straight to Cypher Pole Zero, and they're on the island. And the regular civilians or researchers and people are like, yo, that's Cypher Pole. What are y'all doing here? Oh, this ain't good. So at least they know. They're not like naive characters or anything like that. And then Shaka puts 2 and 2 together like, oh, they use Kuma's ability. Oh, we really going at it. It's time to throw hands for real. All right, check this out. This we gonna do. I need S snake, S S shark, and S hawk. And I'm like, oh, what? The generic naming is so sciencey, you know. But you guys know what time it is, man. It's Empress Boa Hancock time, right? The Seraphim version. Kid Hawk, who already had Black Bear sweating a few chapters ago. You know what I'm saying? And Jimbowski, who we know has the sweet, sweet know me. And now again, we have a fisherman who's always a fisherman, even when he's on land. That's just, it's kind of filthy. I still don't think it's enough, but it's still filthy. And give the command of them to Sentomaru. If Sentomaru's back in the story, it's impossible to not think about Borsalino at some point showing up. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. This is where things could turn, though, because depending on how Sentomaru's actions could be, right? Odds are, if you have Cypherpole, who's at Egghead, and he's not there to help Dr. Vegapunk, even though Sentomaru's been his bodyguard, Sentomaru still works for the world government. So this could turn into a situation where you're dealing with one Seraphim to four Seraphim plus Cypherpole, right? And if that is the case, that I can understand, right? That's a big group. They have abilities. They're Seraphim. They're shown to be very durable. You know, we know what they're capable of. This I can buy. That Robert D. Gucci McLucci, as much as I like him and the drip that Cypher Pole exudes, again, I already told y'all, the Monster Trio is not going. You know, it's just not. Or we'll start calling them the Quasar Quartet with Boss Jimbowski in there. It's just not happening. But in this situation, it's a little bit different. Plus, there's other ways to be threats, right? They start threatening the island in some way, either, you know, Punk Road Records. Like, I've been thinking that they're probably going to, you know, even though they were told not to destroy stuff, you know how Lucci is. And we're still not sure what his intentions are, right? Because if you even go back way back to the Cypher Pole cover story, regardless of them trusting Lucci enough, right, to bring him into Cypher Pole Zero, and the fact that Lucci is already asking questions when that wasn't really a thing before. I'm not saying he's going to be a good guy or nothing like that. He's always going to be Dark Justice. That's just probably what was really good. But that doesn't stop him from doing other stuff. You know, it's kind of like a crocodile thing where if he decides that he'd rather deal with somebody else than deal with the world government, then he's going to do whatever it is that Lucci wants to do. You know what I mean? But that's kind of how I was thinking about it. And then, so if they're all going to fight, this is about to get mad chaotic. And again, like I was talking about, those Cypher Pole ships that are also out there, let's say Sentomaru doesn't flip sides with the Seraphim just to take a chance at trying to finish the Straw Hats, essentially, you know. Say that doesn't go that route. Are you really going to tell me, as busted as Kuma's ability is, man, that him as a Seraphim, you know, Stussy, Kaku, Seraphim, Kuma, you know what I'm saying, and Robert Lucci, that's four people, man. The rest of those bums and scrubs are not going to matter. We've seen this before. We know how this goes with fodder, man. They're fodder for a reason. Anytime you see people with weapons in One Piece, like actual guns and stuff, if it's not a Van Harger, we already know they're trash, right? This ain't Bleach, this ain't Grammo, this ain't Stark, you know, this ain't Vast the Stampede. If you have a regular weapon in One Piece that's not a sword or something of that nature, we already know you're a bum. So these fodder are not going to be able, they're just going to be more annoying than anything, right? Even Blackbeard was struggling with Law's crew under the right conditions. I get that. But it just seems like the Straw Hats are just, you know, they're just, it just ain't it. It just ain't it. I like Lucci, but not more than the goat with the goat. But we cut to basically Dr. Vegapunk asking Luffy, like, can I roll with you? And I'm like, how are we getting this with Dr. Vegapunk if we didn't get it with Yamato? Oh, man. I'm still salty about Yamato. He'll be back. She'll be back. Baby, come back. You can blame it all on Oda. It is what it is, though. But if that's going to be the case, right? And Luffy's like, I guess you can roll because you got a funny looking head, which is wild for Luffy. I mean, it's not wild. It's actually part of course when it comes to the go with the goat. But he does agree, like, okay, you can roll with us, and so you can do what you got to do. Of course, like I said, with Dr. Vegapunk wanting to go out and seek whatever this alternative resource of fuel is, right? Leading back to whatever he found out about with the Iron Giant. And I'm sure there'll be other expositions that if Dr. Vegapunk makes it off this island with us, there will be some things to talk about, right? Because the Straw Hats do well at gathering information, even if it's by accident, right? It's just how it goes, and then there's so many things that Frankie, Robin, Usopp, with all, or even Sanji, right, with the whole Reisu situation, his genetic situation, there's reasons for those four. That's basically half the group of the Straw Hats. And even Nami, because she studied with the Weatherians or Weatherians, however you say their names, the dudes back in Skypiea, which I had already talked about before. Vegapunk has probably met at some point. So there is other reasons besides the reasons that we think about where a lot of the Straw Hats do benefit from him being around, even on a short note, even for a short term. Maybe it's just a transitional thing and he doesn't make it to Elbaf. But it makes sense for all of them. And Chopper, I don't know how I forgot about Chopper. He's just as important as Usopp and Frankie in that regard. But he does have things, and then Zoro wanted to ask him some questions. He wanted to ask him something, right? More than likely about the smile fruit thing back in Wano. Like, there's plenty of things for Vegapunk to play a role for besides whatever his goal is, which increases his odds of sticking around. It's just, and then the whole dragon thing, which I just find it impossible that conversation just doesn't happen. And that's what made it even funnier to me that Luffy tells Dr. Vegapunk, we're not like going on a cruise, or he said something to that effect, or a field trip. Like, dude, Luffy, do you understand who you're talking to, bro? Like, I'm pretty sure he knows, like, that you're Yonko, right? He knows what you do for a living. You don't know he knows your father, but he definitely knows he knew. It's like Luffy, dude. He knew your name before you even showed up, dog. Like, come on. I know you are who you are, but that was one of those statements to me that was just kind of funny. Like, it's mad Luffy to say that. But then he talks about, hey, we got to bring Bonnie with us too. And then he disappears, which this is wild because I know that's how he popped up in the chapter when he first ran into Luffy, right? He got stuck in a thing where he's like, did space-time get bent mid-warp? Implying that, at least to me, he's either did something with Lost Fruit or he did something with Van Argos, right? And he's been able to give that ability to himself somehow, which is another thing I haven't really talked about is, does Dr. Vegapunk have other abilities as far as Devil Fruits are concerned? Because still we haven't seen Seraphim use dual abilities of Devil Fruits. So that might still apply regardless of who you are. You can't have two if you're not Blackbeard. But he disappeared. And it's just like Absalom. It's Absalom or Van Auger. It's one of the two. Or he's using regular technology, because Osoba Mask, even Law knew how camouflage worked in their world. And now, I just thought I'd bring that up because it's something I thought about. Now, we got the Cypher Pole again. And Kaku is fanboying out about space monsters, which is interesting to me because that implies that they know about space. And this is something we all have been talking about for years, but they're very aware of space and the fact that a space monster could possibly exist. Because Kaku immediately called it a space monster the same way when Luffy, Jinbei, Chopper, and Bonnie first got the Egghead. So they know these things exist, but they're just not talked about. It's subtle, but you guys know how I am. That was I for Kaku to be aware of something like that. And he's like, oh, I've always wanted to fight one. Meaning this is something he's been thinking about his whole life. It's like, okay, here we go. We're getting more information without being given information, and I love it. Anyway, so he wanted to fight one, and then we get Rangakyo. I haven't heard that in so long, man. I haven't heard that in so long. Pasta machine. And it goes right through it, of course, because it's a hologram. Now, still see, knowing that this is a hologram is very interesting, especially because how Rob Lucci commented on it to her. He said something to the effect like, "Oh, you're just as smart as ever, or well versed as ever," meaning Lucci also knows holograms exist. And Stussy says something to the effect of, "Oh, this takes me back," meaning she's either been to Egghead before, she's either, I actually have no idea. But other than the Egghead thing, she's encountered holograms at some point in her life. I mean, we don't know anything about her. But then there was something that I used to think about before, because the way that Cypher Pole rolls, they make it look like they're usually people who know each other, right? Because even with Blue Dripper and Ma, they had been rolling together for a minute. And the other guy, I forgot his name. They just named him. I was just telling us. So we had Guernica, Maha. It was like Gizmaldo or something like that. But they were all, since they usually travel in little groups a la Akatsuki. So Rob Lucci and Stussy have history. Because how else would he know that Stussy is an informed character? You know what I mean? Like, they didn't just start working together at Return to Reverie arc. They probably did stuff together before in the past. And just the way that they're interacting with each other, even with Kaku in this chapter, because Kaku, he does the thing that he does best. Let me get the high ground. You guys know I talk about high ground all the time. And he pulled a oh, I'm so glad I forgot her name. Carrot. He pulled a carrot, and then Stussy was like, "Yeah, you see them two lines up there? He about to get bug zapped." And sure enough, he did. It's kind of funny because since Stussy's introduction, I haven't heard any Stussy stands yet. And that phrase sounds weirder than what I thought it would in my head. But we haven't even seen anybody simp for Stussy yet in a big way in the community, as far as like, that's not a thing yet. But I feel like after this chapter it will, just because she's getting to talk, and stuff like that. And we all know how y'all get when females get to talk in a series. It gets kind of sad. But the part of this that kind of like, okay, you know what? I'll talk about that another time. But all I'm going to say is this. Okay, Atlas, poor Atlas. Atlas was the only one that we even thought might have some hands. And look, I like what Lucci did. I really do, because especially in the series where everybody has a named attack, even me, for as much as I like Zoro. The first time, like when he used Danzan's guy on Pika, bro, the haiku that he spit out, I'm just like, I get it, and there's religious references in there and stuff like that. But it was just like, this is a long name attack, bro. And even like in Stampede, right? The situation with Fujitora. And Zoro said all that stuff just to cut a meteor in half. And Mihawk silently just, "Oh, you probably should have did this way, young man." You know what I mean? That's what I felt about this panel. She goes up with this, what she say, like ultra mega power, and then she got just folded. All Lucci is so, the Lucci drip is wild, man. The dude he has charisma, man, similar to Dofi, right? And with Lucci, it's just different because he is so no nonsense. That's why I like it, man. There's no nonsense in it. Some of the bad guys, they got nonsense in them, right? Blackbeard, he's just nonsensical all the time. Lucci is just straight to the point, man. I'm here to clap people. That's all I want. And right when she's throwing out her named attack, he like, this ain't no game. Rokugan. Boy, I ain't said Rokugan in some months, man. You guys used to know, especially on my old channel, before Luffy got his power-ups, that was the one attack I used to think he was going to copy. And we saw almost a version of it when he fought Kaido. I just felt like that was going to be a thing at some point. She took one to the face. Lucci is not playing at all. And he's took an L before. Oh, he's not playing. That was so raw. That was raw. Right straight in the grill. Here, Roku Ogan in the face. You imagine if that's what he was doing to Luffy back then? Just repeated Roku Ogans to the noggin. And now he could probably throw armament on that thing, even though Roku Ogan almost seemed hockey-like to begin with, similar to Skype and the mantra thing, right? That was just dope. That was just dope. That was a dope way to end the chapter, because then you just see Luffy. Pigeon guy. I've seen a lot of funny memes this morning. Even on Twitter, man. The Rob Lucci Twitter memes are wild right now about Gear 5 Luffy. Y'all need to check some of that stuff out if you ain't seen it, because it's absolutely hilarious, because that's exactly what's about to happen. There's just no way. Again, and I'm the main one who usually brings up every time in the series Luffy gets stronger, he ends up struggling that very first fight where you expect him to just be wiping people out. So I know something weird is gonna happen, and then we don't even know what Stussie's abilities are. All we knew is she clapped Dufel with Shigon. Other than that, she's never done anything. We know what Kaku's about, but we know as soon as Zoro shows up, that's not gonna really matter. Like what he's on, it's just not gonna matter. I'm just interested in Sentomaru is the one that will turn the tide on what he does with the Seraphim. I think that would be the biggest. Is Sentomaru and Lilith. But then based off Lilith's behavior towards Rob Lucci, maybe that's like part of her gag where she really wouldn't turn on, pull something shady. We'll see, man. But Pigeon guy, Mugiwara, this is about to go down. And I hope he brings up Who's Who if he sees Jinbei, like, oh, I heard you watch Who's Who or something. Like, I don't care if it's just a statement. That's all I need. But, yeah, man, it was just wild. It's good to be back. I wanted to talk to y'all about some other stuff as far as, like, other series this week. But, the holidays is wild. I got some free time coming up, though. So I think, hopefully I'll be able to get back with y'all on a few things I've been working on as far as stuff that I think is going to happen in the story later. But hey, you ready? Up, you hear, they out there, boy. That's gonna be Lucci right there. That's Lucci, you hear? The phenom from Fusha, man. It's a 1-game sweep. Y'all take it easy, I'm out.